Hi everyone, this is Viktoria Tocca. Today we are going to talk about how to release your music as an independent artist. And to get some help and more voices into this conversation, I have invited two incredible independent artists, Mary-Jess and Joanna Forest.
So welcome, Joanna Forest and Mary-Jess. I am really excited to have you because we are going to talk about how you can release your own music online without a record company behind you. And since all three of us have done this and been quite successful at it as well, I think this could be really helpful for a lot of people who are thinking about recording an EP or a full album or just releasing a single even. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, very happy to be here because I get to talk to two of my best friends all morning, so I'm excited.
Yay! So how many releases have each of you done? If we start with Joanna, maybe, because you're at the top of my screen right now.
Yeah, you're at the top of my screen as well. I've got MJ at the bottom. So I've released 2 full albums. I've sang and collaborated on 4 singles and released a single last year that I felt like I very much sort of like pulled the team together, as it were.
Right. And Mary-Jess, how much have you released on your own?
On my own, quite a few singles and 4 albums now. Yeah. And then I've been included on about 17 others.
And I haven't even counted, but I think that I've released 4 albums on my own and collaborated on like, I don't know how many.
Like so many, yeah.
Yeah. But what would you say is like the main things that you really need to prepare to release an album?
Well, I wrote a little list before we came on, and there are so many ducks that you've got to get into a row when you're doing an album, but you've got to remember, before I say this list, that you've got lots of time in order to do it. And as long as you're organised, you can get all those little ducks on your list ticked off. So,
yes. And before Mary-Jess reads the whole list, I want to let you know that we are going to put this list in the description of the video. So you don't have to panic if you don't have a paper and pen at hand. You can look in the description below and you will get the list there as well. So.
Perfect. There are plenty of other things that you can add to this list, but these are probably some of the main ones. So you need a promotional campaign, licenses for any cover songs. You've got to register it with your royalty collection societies. So in the UK, that's PRS and MCPS. You need to get the artwork done. You need to have contracts drawn up with instrumentalists, producers, potentially photographers as well. You need a digital distributor that you're using, be that CD Baby or TuneCore or any of the others. There's plenty of other ones. Lyric cards, music videos, all part of the promotional campaign. There's many other things. Those are probably the main ones that you need to think about when you're starting to get going. But it sounds like a big list, but quite often each of these things are not actually that big a job.
So is there anything you want to add to that, Joanna?
I think the main thing when releasing music is thinking, what does success look like? What is your ambition for this? And what would you like to see happen? And then I think you can sort of make your plan accordingly. So, and what are you sort of meaning by release? So are you going to release a song with a lovely video and your hope is that it will get lots of YouTube hits and that it's going to up your profile and that it's going to bring a lot of people towards your social media? Or are you hoping that it's going to be, are you going to register it to be chart eligible? Are you hoping to, you know, really sort of get it high up in the charts? There's lots of sort of things you have to think about depending on what your ultimate goal is for your release.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I mean, releasing an album or an EP or a single, I mean, it can feel quite overwhelming because it's so much that needs to be done. And I think that's why this tutorial might be helpful, because as Mary-Jess said, if you can just get your list sorted out and your ducks in a row, so to speak, you will have like a roadmap of, you know, where to go and stuff to tick off your list and stuff to remember. And
yeah, that's absolutely right. And the next time you release the music, you'll know what you're going to do because you'll have that roadmap in place. You'll have those steps, so it won't feel quite so overwhelming. I don't know about you ladies, but my first release was definitely the big learning curve of all the things, just feeling like, oh my gosh, this is a huge mountain to climb. And then the next time I released an album, I felt like I knew what I was doing more because I'd already done it and I had some knowledge. And I think it's also sort of worth mentioning, there isn't like a right or a wrong way to do this. This is just sort of what's worked for us, isn't it? And some tips that we wanted to share.
I would also like to mention that since it's a lot of things on this list, and we could probably talk for hours about each point, we have planned to do separate tutorials and separate videos on at least some of these subjects so that you can go more in depth in, for example, like the artwork or music video production or things like that. So just stay tuned, subscribe to Tocca Entertainment on YouTube, and you will be finding some really good content and stuff that can help you along the way if you want to release music as an independent artist. Mary-Jess, you mentioned on that list the different what do we call distributors, or, you know, like channels or possibilities where you can release your music. Which ones have you used that you've been really happy with?
I've tended to use CD Baby most often because you pay a one-off fee and then they do take, I think it's 9%, but at least you don't have to pay a subscription every year like you do with TuneCore. But unfortunately, I had to move from CD Baby for one of my releases because they cannot distribute songs with Chinese characters in the titles to iTunes and Apple Music. So I wasn't going to let the distributor that I had hold me back from putting out what I wanted to put out. So I moved to Rootnote, and they distribute to a large number of Chinese distributors and streaming services and things like that in China. So that's why I chose them. But I did a lot of research, and Ari's Take actually has a great article and a great table about all of the different distributors that you can use. And he really goes into depth about what they offer, where they distribute to, do they distribute to China, because it's such a big market over there and it's growing and it's going to continue to grow. So it depends on what you want from your distributor, but I recommend checking out Ari's Take and looking at that table because it's very helpful.
So again, you'll find it in the description of the video because we want to make this as easy and fun as possible for you guys if you decide that you want to release music. So Joanna, are there any other distributors that you have used that you've liked working with?
Yeah, so the first album, Stars Are Rising, that I released that with Right Track, which was recommended to me, being the distributor. One of the things I was quite impressed with them is that they got Stars Are Rising on a sort of standalone thing in HMV, where it wasn't just sort of like it was a classical music release. It wasn't just there by my name. It was sort of like at the front, which was really exciting to see. And I thought that was sort of really positive. And the second album that I released with Absolute, who I was also really impressed with. And they're really nice people. Again, I got my album on this standalone sort of podium in HMV, which I don't think there's as many HMVs now, unfortunately, which is a UK record store for anyone who doesn't know. But at the time, I think that was really helpful because I wasn't quite sure how many people would wander into a record store and pick up a random album and go, well, you know what, I'm going to buy that. But then I'd get sort of like the things through and I'd be like, people actually are. So I think that really made a difference, because when I released Stars Are Rising in 2017, I felt, I was very sort of new to the music industry. And I think little things like that, if a distributor can help you, just give you a boost. And then last year, I was asked to record a charity single for a policeman who was tragically killed in the UK. And I was asked to record World in Union. And the East Grinstead Rugby Club, where he was head coach, was like, how do we, because it was originally just some music for his VT for an award he was up for, BBC Sports Personality. They're like, how do we release it? And I was like, well, actually, I think I can help you there. They're like, how do we get it on something like iTunes? And I was like, why don't I put you in touch with my distributor? And the distributor was really kind, because they did it all for free. And they put a TV plugger and a radio plugger on it for free. Wow. Because it was for charity. So I think they are very nice and kind people, and they've really worked on it as a team. And I think it probably got the most PR of anything that I've been involved in, which I think is something to really consider. Can the distributor, will they help you with that type of thing if possible? There are little things that a distributor can do, like, I don't know if you've noticed when you're scrolling through sort of like Apple Music, that some of at the top are sort of like recommended and they're highlighted. There's all these little things. Are you going to do your digital marketing campaign, or are they going to do it? Now, I've never had a distributor do that. I think I've always done that myself. But I think they can help. They may, when you do your research, they may have a section. If you're feeling a bit overwhelmed, do you want somebody to take that over for you? I've always felt like I've wanted social media to be my voice and my graphics, my videos put out at my time. But I know that type of thing can be massively, massively helpful to other people. They may even give you advice on, I know that both Right Track and Absolute, they printed my CDs for me. So there's all those little things. What do you want your distributor to do? You might want them to do loads of stuff, you might want them to do hardly anything, but it's interesting to see what can they do and what do they do.
Do all these distributors that you've talked about now, both Joanna and Mary-Jess, do they do both like a physical release and a digital release, or no, some of them just do digital, right?
Yeah, that's right. So for Root Note, that I'm releasing my next single through, they only do digital releases, whereas CD Baby also do physical release.
For digital releases, you can even use Reverb Nation, for example, or SoundCloud works as well. I've released like my podcasts that I did a few years back, I released through SoundCloud. And I also think that, especially when we talk about digital releases, it's good to check if these distributors, if they can help you get on lists on iTunes. Because if you get, like, I released a Christmas single, it was probably 2 or 3 years ago. And because the distributor that I chose helped me get on like new Christmas music list on Spotify, we got so many
streams.
Well, yeah, we got so many streams on that song. So it's like Joanna said, if you can have a distributor or find a distributor that would also get you on like Spotify lists or on certain search words or whatever on iTunes, for example, that is really, really helpful to get your music seen and heard. I also know we do not have an American with us right now, but in America, I know that one of the like when it comes to like monetizing your music, getting it up on Pandora seems to be a really, really important thing. I'm a very good friend of Jennifer Thomas, a classical crossover pianist. And I mean, she's making her living through Pandora, which are paying a lot more than Spotify, for example. And it's kind of like an online radio station where if you can get your music associated with other bigger artists, I know that her, like if people search for Lindsey Sterling or the Piano Guys or something like that, her music will pop up as suggestions or on the same playlists as them. And unfortunately, I haven't been able to make that work from Sweden or from Europe. So I'm not sure how you would go about doing that. But if you're from America, you should definitely check out Pandora, because there is money there to be made from your music for sure.
That's completely true. And the other thing to add as well is that if your distributor doesn't distribute to Spotify to get you onto playlists, you can submit for playlists yourself. There are several different places in which you can do that. I'm not entirely sure that I personally would recommend spending marketing budgets paying people to put you on their playlists. It completely depends on a lot of things. And there might be places where that marketing budget is better spent. But it depends on what your goals are. Like Joanna said at the beginning, if you want to get lots of plays on Spotify and that is your goal, then, you know, spend whatever you want to achieve that. But at the same time, Spotify is it doesn't pay its artists properly, and then also there's no return path to the people who listen to you as well. So you could find people who listen to you and enjoy it, but there's no way to get back in touch with them to start building a relationship. So I personally don't prioritize Spotify, but I feel like if I was an instrumental artist, then I probably would a little bit more.
Being Swedish, I am a bit ashamed of Spotify that way. I mean, we're proud of it being a big company, but they are not paying the artists what they're supposed to get paid. I did not pay any extra money to get on those lists, but the distributor, you know, had that whole sort of machine set up so that any new releases they were releasing, you know, they made sure that they got on different lists and it wasn't, you know, an extra cost or anything like that. But yes, I do agree with Mary-Jess. I would not pay for that, because there's no way you're going to get your money back through Spotify streams anyway, unless maybe you're Taylor Swift. I don't know.
No, I was just gonna say that I totally agree that you know, with the marketing budget, I think it might be sensible to spend it elsewhere, primarily for the reason you were saying, Mary-Jess, about there's no like pathway back. That's such a good way of explaining it. Once they've listened, they might be like, oh, I really enjoyed that. There's no way for you to go, hello, and I've also done this and this and this. And, you know, do you want to sign up to my mailing list? And do you want to stay in touch? And the other thing, when I've sort of been sort of researching this type of thing, is that people can skip you. So you might be on an amazing new release playlist and people aren't actually listening to you. They could totally skip you. Just because you're on these playlists doesn't mean people are listening. And some of these playlists are like, have so many hours in them that it would take somebody like a couple of weeks to listen to it. So are they going to get to you? I'm not sure. And even if say a few people did, it's like you were both saying, to the monetization of it isn't going to help you get your money back. And also, I think sometimes it's sort of worth mentioning that sometimes you do have to spend, and you might not get money back as such, but you might get new fans, or you might get some PR so that people have heard of you. But I think you don't even get that with Spotify either. I think is what I would say.
Yeah, the one thing I would say though is that when we released that Christmas song and it got so many streams on Spotify, we were able to use it for our PR, and that got us onto several different radio stations to talk about the single, which we wouldn't have probably without being able to say like, oh, we got 100,000 streams in our first week. And then suddenly,
Wow.
you know, radio stations were interested, like, oh, so then we need to talk to you. So I would say that was the upside of, you know, ending up. And I guess maybe when it comes to Christmas music, it might be a bit different because people probably just put on, or, you know, a Christmas song list and have in the background at home, or I don't know. But I mean, for that particular release, it really helped us to be able to use that information to then get, you know, like radio interviews and other press and media.
That's brilliant that you got that. But if I was an independent artist listening to this, I feel like I should tell them that you can't expect that.
Right.
That's luck. And like, it's great when it happens and you've got to be prepared for that. Luck is being prepared for opportunity when it comes. So if you've got all your ducks in a row, if something like that does happen, you can capitalize on it, and that's great. But don't count on that happening because it's rare. The other thing to mention as well is that I think you mentioned Taylor Swift earlier, Victoria, that I think she's taken all of her songs off Spotify because it doesn't pay artists. Did she put it back again?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. But I thought that was quite a good statement that she was making. And I know a lot of people now, when you're thinking about how to release your music, I don't put a release on Spotify straight away on the release day. I now stagger my releases. So not only do I do either a crowdfunding campaign or a pre-order campaign, but I also do a physical release first, if there is a physical product, then a digital release, then I'll make it available for streaming later. Because it's great to have your stuff on all these platforms, but as an independent artist, you don't have the big bucks of a record label behind you. So how are you going to pay for music? Music is so expensive. It's so expensive, and you need to think about how you're going to be able to get that return on investment. And if you just put everything out for streaming straight away, you're not going to see that. It's not possible. So you've got to think of other ways in which you can get that money back and plan your release so that you're then able to do a next release, so that you're able to create more music, because ultimately that's what your fans want.
And I love that you said luck is being prepared for
opportunity when it comes.
Love that. That's so true, isn't it? That if you do have, if an opportunity presents itself, then you're ready with your ducks in a row. Like you did, Victoria, you capitalized on the fact that you were on the right Christmas playlist, you got all the streams, and then that helped you get further PR. And I think it's really brilliant, if any independent artists are listening, if you have like a story behind your song, just something that when you're writing a press release, that you just have a little bit of a hook that it might make an interesting article, that people might want to talk to you on the radio, because it's not just, I've just released this really cool song I've written, or I've covered a really amazing song and it sounds really good. And be like, oh, it does sound really good, that's nice. But it's much better if you've just got a little angle, little hook. Have you both found that when you've got something interesting to say about it, it creates, whether it's, 100,000 streams or this or that, if you've just got like the headline already, I think, journalists are much more open to including you in their articles because it's a bit more of a story that people will be interested in.
Yeah, you're completely right. And we need to put press release in the list in the description below, because that's an important one. I've always found with press releases as well that I do a local one and I do a UK one, like a worldwide one as well, because as soon as you've got locality within the press release, all of the radio stations and magazines and newspapers in the local area are far more likely to feature you. So definitely get your local ones done and then do more far-reaching ones.
So we'll have a completely separate tutorial talk about how to write your own press releases, because that's a whole subject on its own. And it has so much to do with how to use the angles that you've got. And very good points from Mary-Jess there with, separating your press releases and knowing where you're sending them out. Don't just write one and send it everywhere, because most likely people won't even read it unless, you know, you have a really good headline or something that will catch their eye. But we will go more in depth to that in another tutorial. But yes, that should definitely be on your list. And you also have to remember that depending on what budget you have, you can get help with a lot of these things. But I would say that most of us, at least, have done this with our own money, and we don't have like infinite barrels of gold to you know, just throw at people, which means that you have to do a whole lot of work on your own. And you can do it. And I think one of the things that I've learned through all my years of working is that it's also really, really good to have done it for yourself. Because if you do have the opportunity at one point or another to get, you know, pay someone to help you, or then you know exactly what they should be doing. You will know if they're trying to scam you or get more money than they should. You know, it's always really good to know these things. So no amount of time that you spend researching or learning or doing stuff for yourself is ever wasted, because you will, you know, put that in your toolkit forever, and you will know that even if, you know, you have the opportunity at some point to pay someone to help you.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think if you've got a limited budget and you can't afford to pay people, not only is that knowledge great, but it's also great to be able to put all your limited budget, or as much of it as possible, into your product, because that's what's going to speak for you. That's how new fans are going to discover you. So if you put that extra money that you've got, or any money that you've got, into making the best product that you possibly can, when new people do find you through your own efforts, they're more likely to stay in your circle. And often it's those people who become the best marketers on your behalf. They're just so excited about this music that you're creating that they want to tell all their family and friends. And they are the best marketers. For one, you're not paying them, which is brilliant. But two, is that they're enthusiastic. And so when they're talking to other people about you and they're spreading your message by word of mouth, the people that they're talking to are going to be far more interested to then follow that up. So they are the best marketers that you can have. And I know that we are very blessed within classical crossover to have such amazing fans that do support us, that do share our posts, that do tell their family and friends about us. And that is the most amazing thing that they can do for you, the most amazing thing. And it just shows their support. So when you've got fans that are willing to do that, tell them you're grateful, say thank you, because it's an amazing job that they're doing for you there, especially as an independent artist.
Yeah. And one thing that I wanted to talk about, you know, even though you might be on a tight budget, if there's one thing that I would recommend you spend some money on, or, you know, like put a chunk of your money on, it would be the artwork. Because if the artwork, I mean, that is like the packaging of your whole thing. So if that looks a bit amateur, or it can make or break you. I think, and that's why we need to do like a whole separate thing about artwork, because I think it's so important for, you know, whether people will pick up your product either physically in a store, or if they are going to click on it on, you know, a digital, you know, iTunes or whatever. I mean, the artwork is really, really important.
I totally agree. It's like, have you ever walked in, been browsing in a bookshop, and you just pick up a book because you just like the look of it? They say don't judge a book by its cover, but I think we do. And I think we also are drawn to certain artwork. Totally agree. I think there are ways that it doesn't have to cost a lot. Like I used for Stars Are Rising 99 Designs, where it's brilliant. You pay a certain amount of money and then you put your brief up of what you want, and then lots of designers throw their hat in the ring, and then it's down to you, and then you whittle them down until you get the winner. which is brilliant. And there's lots of different packages that you can decide on, but it's very, very reasonable. It really is. And they are up and coming brilliant designers. And I used the same designer for my second album, The Rhythm of Life, because even though the albums are really different, I like the fact that the artwork ties in, and you can tell that it's by the same person. And she was super lovely as well, and really brilliant to work with. So I don't think it does have to cost an arm and a leg. Having said that, the actual designing didn't cost as much as perhaps it could, but I did spend a lot on the photographs. So both times I used two really brilliant photographers, but then that was good because it wasn't just my photo shoot for an album cover. It was a photo shoot with photos that, that I still use all the time from both sets. So I think that's a really good investment to have some really good photos. And again, that doesn't have to cost the world, because there are some brilliant photographers who, I think you had such a brilliant photographer for your live concert album, Mary-Jess. He's brilliant. And I think you can be really lucky and find these gems. My husband used to work for the Sun newspaper, so we luckily had Mark Heyman take my picture for my sort of second photo shoot, and he does the photographs for Fabulous magazine. So that was really kind of him to photograph me when he's used to photographing all these like amazing people. But I think it's worth investing in pictures, not just for your photo album. You could use those pictures for going forwards for all kinds of things. Sometimes when I've got in a national paper, I'm convinced it's because I invested in really good pictures, and I've been lucky enough to have some front covers, and because of the pandemic and things, they've been pictures I've had already, and I'm sure it's because they're really good pictures, and they've gone, yeah, that's a really good picture. And so yeah, that's what I would put your money in there.
Totally agree with you. I mean, I've done the same thing. And also when you have the opportunity, maybe in another setting or in another, like I did Francesca in Bridges of Madison County, and one of the things that I got to do was to go to Naples to like discover my own Francesca, to see where she came from, to do all this research about her. And I had a photo shoot there for, like Bridges of Madison County. And of course, then I also talked to the photographer when I was there, and like, can we do some other pictures as well? And, then suddenly you have a few more pictures. And that's really, really important. And I've actually done a tutorial on the difference between a headshot and a press photo. And it's really important to understand the difference. I mean, most musical theater people will definitely have a headshot, because that's what, you use to go out for auditions or to send yourself out for auditions. But a lot of musical theater or stage people do not have a proper press photo, and because they might not understand the difference. If you have all these good pictures, you can use it for concert posters, you can use it for calendars. If you have a web shop, you can use it for merchandise, you can use it for sending out to press, for all kinds of different things. As you said, Joanna, I've also had or ended up on covers of magazines just because I had a really good picture and they didn't have anything else that was better. So they're like, oh, let's use this, because, they want good material as well. So all these things are really important. So good pictures, yes. What do you say about that, Mary-Jess?
Well, I've been very lucky with quite a lot of my photo shoots, because I've known people who have had photographers as friends that are trying to build a portfolio. And so I would go and have a free photo shoot with them so that they had pictures for their portfolio and I had pictures that I could use. And the blessing with that is that if you don't really like the pictures afterwards because there's somebody in training, it hasn't cost you anything. Just find somebody else to do some more pictures, but it doesn't cost you anything. So even if you reach out to a college where they're teaching a photography course and say, I need some photos for an album. Do any of your students need anything for a portfolio or for a project? Can we do a talent swap? Then just ask. I mean, Victoria, I love your saying, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. That's
Right.
completely perfect here. So just ask. And the other thing to be aware of as well is that some photographers are very choosy as to where their pictures are used, because even though it's a picture of you, technically the photographer owns it. So you need to make sure once you've had a photo shoot that the photographer is happy for you to use the pictures in any way, and they're happy for you to monetize the pictures without paying them any royalties. You need to make sure you've got that written down somewhere. Like, a contract is best, but even if it's just in an email or a text message, at least you got it.
Right.
But make sure you confirm with the photographer that you can use their pictures that they've taken of you, because they technically own them, for anything that you want. Make sure you have that agreed. Do it before the shoot.
Yes, unless you have paid for the shoot specifically for, you know, press photos, because that's then understood in the contract between you doing that photo shoot. And also remember to always credit the photographer. If you send out press photos to a magazine or something, you have to, even if you've paid for the photos, you still have to put the photographer's name when you send out photos, because they need to get credited for their pictures.
When we're talking about using pictures for anything, the really important thing to say when you're releasing an album is to make sure, once you've chosen what your pictures are and what your branding is going to be for that campaign, make sure it's exactly the same pictures on all of your social media sites. That is very important, because if one of your raving fans tells their friend and family about you, shows them the picture of you on Facebook, but you prefer to use Instagram, you go on Instagram to try and find this artist, and if it's not the same picture, you don't know if it's the right person. So you need to have the same pictures across all of your social media sites to make it easier for people to find you. Same with the tag as well. I've tried to make it on all of my social media accounts to always be Mary-Jess Music, or as close to that as I can get it, because that way people know it's going to be you. You know, that's the best thing to be able to do when you're releasing an album. People are going to want to find you. If you're getting all this press, people are going to want to find you. Make sure the pictures you're using are all the same everywhere, and it makes it easier for people to find you.
Such a good point, because, you know, if they particularly like you, they might want to follow you on all of their social media, and it's just going to be such a quick, easy job. There's the photo, recognize it, follow. There's the photo, recognize it, follow. Yeah, that's a really good piece of advice, to just sort of brand aware across everything.
So one of the things that you can also do as an independent artist, if you don't have a lot of money, or you don't have a big budget to record a full album, or whatever you want to record, is to start a crowdfunding. I've done it for one of my albums, and I know at least you have, Mary-Jess, as well. Did you, Joanna, at some point?
No, I haven't done crowdfunding. But I do think it's a lovely idea to take people with you on the journey, and staying in touch as you're creating the album. I've contributed to crowdfunding things, and even like people like self-funding books and things, you know, using crowdfunding to help them on their way. And it's really fun when you get an update, like, it's gone to the publishers, or the albums, they've gone to the studio. I think it's fun.
So what was your experience doing that, Mary-Jess? What platform did you use, and how did it work for you?
Well, the first platform that I used was Pledge Music, and I'm glad to say that I just finished my campaign just before they, yes. So thankfully I got all of the money that my fans had paid in to support me, and it was for my third album, Inspire, that I was making with 4 really talented teenage singers. So the Pledge Music campaign was really exciting, because I was able to offer so many more products and experiences than I'd ever offered before. And I was also able, as Joanna said, to bring the fans along on the journey from the concept of the album to release. And I think they loved being able to see all the behind the scenes that went along with making an album. And I love being able to share that with them as well, because when you're asking somebody to buy something in advance, you need to show them why you need them to do that. and also show them what goes into it, so they understand A, why it takes so long, and B, why you need the money. Because music is so expensive. If you wait until you've created it to then release it, to then get the money back, you might not actually be able to create what you want to create. Like if I wanted to create something with an orchestra, lots of string players, that would cost thousands upon thousands of pounds. And so if you can ask your fans to buy the album up front, you've got that money to then invest in the music before you release it. Otherwise, you're going to be struggling to make something that isn't quite what you want because you don't have the budget for it, then release it afterwards. And it's not actually the product that you wanted to create because you were limited by funds. And if your fans can help you create what you really want to create, then they're going to love to go on that journey with you. And that's the kind of thing that they're going to want to listen to as well. They're going to want to listen to what is actually your creative vision. And it's amazing when you get fans that are willing to spend their money up front before they've even heard the music, because that shows such great trust in you. And I think when you are able to be really open and honest and vulnerable with your fans and your supporters about why you want to create this, why you want it to have this certain sound, why you wrote this song, why you'd like people to hear it, and why you'd like to make it with this person or that person, but you just need a bit of money to do that, they're far more likely to support you because they understand and they're on the journey with you. It's such an amazing thing to be able to do. I loved crowdfunding, and I crowdfunded on my website for my 4th album live in concert.
How was that different from using a platform, except for, because I can't remember what I used now for crowdfunding, but when you use a crowdfunding platform, they usually take a percentage of, you know, what people pay you. But the problem with some of them is that they take a lot of the money. You know, you're doing all the work, the fans want, you know, your product. So when these companies take a really big chunk out of, you know, your crowdfunded money, so I'm really interested in knowing how you crowdfunded from your own website, was it?
Yeah, it was. And what I was going to say is not only that it enabled me to keep all of the money that was coming in, which was great, but it also meant that my fans could trust that, because I think after what happened with Pledge Music, some fans don't trust these crowdfunding platforms quite as much. And so by doing it directly through my website, directly to me, not only was I able to keep all the money that came in, but they knew that they could trust me. And it wasn't this third party that we were going through that could go under like Pledge Music did and lose all their money.
Did you use PayPal, or how did you set up your like payment options for that?
Yeah, I have, well, they can do it directly through the website, which uses Stripe. So there's a Stripe integration, and then there's a PayPal integration as well. And it's good when there is a PayPal integration because people are more willing to buy things when they know that their money is secure online. But PayPal does take a bigger cut than Stripe. So that's something to be aware of. The one thing I would say about crowdfunding through a website is if you can embed a widget into your site that does a counter, because the great thing about Pledge Music or Kickstarter is you've got, you know, 60% of goal reached, and that's not something that is available on some website builders. So I did find that on Pledge Music that was a very helpful thing to have, because I was able to send out updates saying we're getting there, you know, it's 60%, it's 80%. I've created this new product so that we can get it all the way. You know, it felt like a race with an ending, whereas when it was on the website, because I didn't have that widget integrated, there wasn't quite that feeling of getting to a goal. So if you are tech savvy and you can build something like that into your website builder that you're using, then great. Right. I'm not sure who this guy uses. There's an artist called Chris Greenwood, who's known as Manifest. He does artist coaching, but I've seen a way that he did a Kickstarter. It was actually a page on his website that he'd called Kickstarter. So it was a very clever way of doing it, because it was a Kickstarter campaign that he was doing, and that it was a crowdfunding campaign. But because it was built on his website, he would get to keep all of the money that was coming in. And he did have a few different things embedded that did have the counter and things like that. I know he uses ClickFunnels, maybe it's a WordPress site, I'm not entirely sure, but I thought that was very savvy. So the other thing to bear in mind for independent artists when they are releasing an album is that the most important asset that you've got in terms of marketing is an email list. So when you're putting your posts out to social media, normally it's only 5 to 7% of the people who like your artist page who actually get to see your posts. So you cannot guarantee that people who really want to buy an album or buy your products or buy from a crowdfunding campaign will actually see your message. There is another way in which you can guarantee that people will see your message, and that is email marketing. So normally you get about a 30 to 40% open rate for email marketing, which is vastly different to 5% that you can get on a Facebook page. So there is another way as well, which is messenger marketing. So you can have messenger bots. But the problem with that, even though there's an 80% open rate, is that you do not own that information. The great thing about an email list is that you own that information. And you can go onto MailChimp, set up a free account. It's free up to 2,000 subscribers. Just make sure that you've got their name and you've got their email so that you can talk to them directly in an email and go, hello, Victoria, hello, Joanna. That's really important to build that personal connection. Make sure you're nurturing your email list, because it's the people on your list that are going to support you the most. They're not just somebody on social media who's gone, oh, that looks nice. They're actually somebody who's gone, I want to be in touch with you. I will give you my name. I will give you my email address because I'm interested. So that is your most valuable asset. If you don't have an email list now, start growing one as soon as possible, just so that you've got a way of getting more people who are already invested in you to see your message.
Yeah, I think that's such a good piece of advice, because it's so easy just to click follow on social media, or you might be following somebody on Instagram, but it's another step to actually sit there, type in your details and subscribe to a list. They are that bit more invested, and they're like your dream team. They're like your A team, who when you write to them, they're hopefully they're going to listen. And I also think as well that it's sort of worth mentioning that I think you have to accept that everybody's really interested and really wants to hear from you, and act like that. If they don't, they will unsubscribe, they will unfollow. But I think it's don't be tentative with these people. Just think of them as your tribe, and message them in that way. And if they're not sort of with you, then they'll leave you. That's fine, because the people that you want, it's better to have less people who are like super invested than like a whole load of people that are just a bit sort of like mildly interested. So yeah, no, that's a great piece of advice. If you don't have a mailing list, set one up now. I use MailChimp. I think you said you use MailChimp. Yeah, it's easy. Easy interface. Just get used to it and start sending out. Put on your social media something like, do you want to hear on my news first? Sign up. Or sometimes, I haven't done this, but I think it's a great idea. It's just one of those things, when we have these as an independent artist, you have a very big to-do list, don't you? But I think if there's some kind of incentive that you can think of, what's going to make them take that extra moment to sit and subscribe? Is it a song perhaps that you've got recorded that nobody else is going to hear? Is there potentially a special code that you get money off merchandise? Is there something that you can reel them in and grow that list?
Yeah, that I do actually have that. I have a song, well, I have 2 songs that are not available for digital download anywhere else. And that is my incentive to get people to sign up to my list. And it's all fully automated. So with a free account on MailChimp, you can set up one automation. So the best automation to set up is that welcome email. So as soon as somebody subscribes, they get an email from me that's fully automated saying, thank you so much. Here are your free songs. So there's 2 songs completely free that are not available for digital download anywhere else. And that seems to be working quite well for me. I do have plans for it in the future to make it an even juicier offer. But as you said, the to-do list of independent artists is, my arm's not long enough. And it also means that when you've given them something for free and you've built that relationship with them, when you are launching your first single or your first EP or your first album, they're going to be excited because they feel like they've they've got a relationship with you, and they're looking forward to seeing that music and hearing that music as much as you are to releasing it. And that's a wonderful experience to share with your fan base.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to wrap this part of our tutorial on how to release your music as an independent artist. We will be putting the list that Mary-Jess talked about in the beginning of this video down in the description below. And we will also put some really helpful links and stuff down there that you can use or check out. But then, you know, obviously there is millions of ways you can go about doing this. So feel free to Google and do your own research, obviously. But we're going to wrap this one up, and you will find more in-depth talks about how to work on social media, artwork, press releases, and all that other stuff if you keep watching videos here on Tocca Entertainment. So thank you for now, ladies, and I'll see you guys soon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.